In part 1, I went over how to install Tabletop Simulator to have it ready to play 40k. But just because you can play 40k this way, doesn't mean that you should. This video will cover the reasonable reasons why you should play 40k on Tabletop Simulator, like instant 40k army, and the far less reasonable, take that, you money gatekeeping capitalist house haver! And ultimately, why I don't play 40k that way. So the reasons to play on Tabletop Simulator. It is super cheap. Generally for the game, and you buy the game and that's it. Considering all of the games you get, not just 40k, it's brilliant. I really recommend it as a purchase. Not necessarily for 40k, just generally. If you like board games, get Tabletop Simulator. And though I won't be recommending it as the main way you should play 40k, it is far, far cheaper than the terrain and the models you need for an army. If something new and shiny comes out, a new unit or new army, try playing it on Tabletop Simulator before you rush out and buy the models. Maybe they don't play how you want in-game, or maybe the excitement of playing the faction or unit is all nicely drained from you by playing on Tabletop Simulator, and you realize that if you had bought the unit, you would have spent days painting them, a few hours playing with them, and then be done. Or you would find that once you bought the models, you didn't have the energy for them, and they would just end up as another set of sprues on a grey pile. Second reason, it doesn't take very long to set up the board. The terrain looks nice, you get themed maps that you may never be able to afford or have the space to store. They can have real battlefield effects like snow and fire flickering. That can add something to the immersion of the game. And if you want tournament legal tables, the Vtuber Complete mod has the Pariah Nexus tournament tables, and hopefully will be updated for the 2025-2026 style of tournament mission deck. When you're playing 40k, if you knock a model over, it's gonna break. Or if you knock something and don't know exactly where it was, or you need to do a takeback because you've just been told that the enemy has some really cool Overwatch ability that you were not aware of. Because we play by informed intent and not, haha, gotcha, bet you didn't know this rule on page 84 of my codex. Before they can use that ability, you can click the rewind button so the models are back perfectly where they were before. Though it does take a second to reload. If you're playing a game and realize you don't have enough time to finish the game because you're playing 2,000 points maybe, and that's not the best thing because you wanted to just talk to a friend as well as play a game, if they have to go before the game is over or you can't play the full game, you can save the game state and come back to it the next day or the next week. You can play Tabletop Simulator as long as you have an internet connection and the person you're playing with also has a decent internet connection. You don't need to have people near you that play 40k, which is perfect if you live in the desert of Australia and there is no one in 45 miles that isn't a cow. Tabletop Simulator becomes much more viable as an option. You can play against people beyond Jim that's nearby and his Necrons. You could still play against Jim, but try two totally different armies, so you don't end up playing the same armies against each other over and over. You can meet strangers. You can get to know them. You might like that. Or if they're weird, you can disconnect and it is mostly fine. In person, you have to balance the decision to go running out of the room and the desire to be protecting your models from the smelly man. Sometimes when you're playing 40k, it does matter to have the exact measurements. Very, very rarely. But on Tabletop Simulator, you don't have to say, yeah, we know they're deep striking 9 inches away. You can measure 9.0 virtual inches. When no one is around, you can play with yourself. Try before you buy, see how a new unit performs in theory in-game. See if you like an army. Try Necromunda or Kill Team the one time you think you might actually play it. Which means you don't have to be the person that buys a box set knowing that none of your friends are gonna ever engage with it. Or you can play 40k as most people play it, as it was more intended as a miniature game, as a social experience, where you go to my affiliates and you buy Wargames models. That is also cheaper than buying models through Games Workshop. And then you paint the Wargames models. Perhaps you paint them with golden maple brushes, which you can buy through the link in my description, and with the code Vtuber can have 15% off those brushes. I am lucky that I have lots of gaming clubs nearby and friends that play 40k that I can go and see and play with. It's meeting up, and 40k is an excuse to meet up. I don't have much need for Tabletop Simulator. Tabletop Simulator is not designed for 40k. It's a board game program that has been adapted as best we can to play 40k. Its use was part of how we could cope with the plague years and being separated and not getting a game. Hopefully it is not needed to such an extent in the future. Do you remember a few minutes ago where I said it doesn't take long to set up the board? Well, I have found that it takes much longer to play a game of Tabletop Simulator. You need to be really used to the interface to play Tabletop Simulator quickly. I am much faster in person because I learned how to grip things in my hand and move my arms at a very young age. Getting used to TTS controls is a whole different learning experience. I recommend not going for more than 1000 points for your first games until you get used to it, or you could do some combat patrol. That game may still take 4 hours. Arguably, Tabletop Simulator is faster, but you have to be very used to playing on Tabletop Simulator. Your first time or even your 10th time still won't be faster than doing it in person. Because you're playing online rather than in person, you also need to deal with lagging and disconnects. It really takes you out of the game, like your opponent suddenly wandered off. Tabletop Simulator can be weirdly intensive on the CPU. That will keep happening because there are lots of things on the large virtual space. Picking out an army from Tabletop Simulator pieces takes time. Not as much time as buying and painting, but if you think you can have your first game by hopping into the game and be ready in 10 minutes, you are wrong. The next time will be easier, if you play with the same army on the same board. So it is more geared for tournament than crusade or narrative terrain setups. You know, a town that looked like it had some town planning. You don't have your own army, unless you were to make the models, scan them, and then upload the scans of your models. Scans of models really vary in quality. Any personalization that you've added to your army, any kit bashes, any interesting paint schemes, your own Space Marine chapter with a quartered red and cream color scheme, that won't appear on Tabletop Simulator. Making your own army that are your guys is a big part of playing Warhammer, and you lose that part of the hobby if you only or mainly play on Tabletop Simulator. If that was not something you cared for, you will really like Tabletop Simulator. But for many people, the gameplay alone is not enough of a draw to 40k. It is the creative side, it is the social side that means you will watch a YouTube video from someone half a country or half a world away and feel you like the same thing. And you feel kinship. That is the good side of the internet, social connection across long distances. I don't think even game designers can get the same thing looking at rules alone and playing with the digital equivalent of card tokens. That is fundamentally what Tabletop Simulator is. And 40k's rules are very average when it comes to game design. It's all the rest of the things around it that make it a wargaming hobby. The models, the IP, not so much the rules that change regularly because we so dislike them. The models you get are limited to what is scanned. If no one has scanned a Thunderhammer on a Sergeant, you have a model with a Power Fist instead and have to proxy, which seems like an odd thing to do in a digital space. And unlike in real life where you are constrained by your own cool models, you're constrained by someone else's scans. All your models will look boring. For ease of viewing, in almost all of the workshop sets, the models are in the same pose if they have the same weapon. You thought Games Workshop models monopose was bad. Now you have a whole unit of the same model. It is very 2nd edition in that sense. But we have moved on since 2nd edition. Because you can have any army you want, any models you want in any number, yeah, the price barrier is gone, but so is one of the big barriers to everyone playing the most extreme meta list. If the best army was Eldar with 3 Fire Prisms and 2 Wraith Knights and an Avatar, or it was 200 Neophytes and Acolytes, that would take a lot to buy and paint and prep to travel to a tournament. Then the meta will change after that one game because of the balance patch or the points change. We know this because that exact thing happens. But on Tabletop Simulator, you are not playing against lovely crafted and painted armies, which is what you get for the most part at clubs and tournaments. With a few clicks, anyone can have the most meta army, and a week later have a totally new but still cutting edge meta army. If I'd said before that a Great Adeptus Sororitas army list is 60 Battle Sisters and a lot of tanks, what's stopping you? Well, cost, that's a lot of money, and time. But if you can draw a box, highlight a whole unit and move them all in 2 seconds, it's fine. So the people who regularly play on Tabletop Simulator are either looking to play against that one friend who lives far away, or they're more meta chasers who now can have and play the most intense list and change it every month, no problem. Good for them and the like-minded communities that enjoy it, but that is not for everyone. It's not for most people. And you lose some of the dramatic aspects of 40k, like you don't get the click-clacks of the dice rolling, you press a button. It's not as dramatic. So Tabletop Simulator is a tool that can help you practice or try out an army without buying it. But unless it is your only means of playing 40k, I think you lose far more of the community aspect of 40k that makes it worth going outside for shy nerdy types. To complete the loop, I should show off some Tabletop Simulator gameplay, or at least an abridged version of Tabletop Simulator gameplay. My darlings and viewers, have a great day of 40k.